Welcome to the UFC copium tier list. All right, let's go through these tiers real quick. We got a sprinkle of copium. Guys that just got, they cope a little bit. They're kind of salty. Guys that have a light layering of copium, and we got medium cope. These are guys that they tend to cope, and it's like, yeah, those guys are salty. You can say they're salty. They're copers. They're salty, but strong cope. That's where it gets annoying. And the salt shakers, it's past the annoying point, and because they're just so salty and just cope so much. So, anyways, starting off, we have Israel Adesanya strong. I'll go medium. He's definitely salty, definitely copes, but he hasn't taken his losses too badly. He's not a guy who copes from losses, really. More just about life. And that one t-shirt that he made, basically just insulting his ex-girlfriend just because he didn't like her. It was pretty salty, pretty copium-esque. Coping and crying about the fact that he didn't have a hard life at all, but yet he said he did. Kind of getting exposed, and then was just crying about it when Drickus brought it up at the presser. Even though Drickus was taking little pot shots, he wasn't even really going in on him, just taking little pot shots here and there. Will the servants be there with you? Or whatever it was he said, when Israel, will the servants be there with you in Africa? So Israel, he's a cope art. I want to call him a cope artist, right? Strong cope. That's where the cope artists are. This is a cope artiste. Okay? And then this is, they're salty. They're salty. They cope, And then this is light layering. Layering of copium. Aljamain Sterling. Sprinkle. I think he's got some sprinkles of copium. I don't think he copes that much, but he does cope a little bit. He coped a little bit about the Sean O'Malley loss. But the thing is, it was kind of acceptable. He was still coping about it, but it was kind of acceptable because it is very easy to argue that it was an early stoppage. I think it was an early stoppage. I think that Aljo would still probably end up. I don't know. I do think it's an early stoppage, and I think that Aljo was right to complain about it, but he was really complaining about it. And, there's other things that he says online. He's just kind of a soft guy. So I'm going to say he's got a layering of copium. He's kind of a soft guy. He copes about stuff and gets angry about stuff. Even stuff that he's kind of justified about. He'll get a little heated in his tone. Even with what's currently going on in the featherweight division and stuff. Demanding this, demanding that. And some of the stuff he's right about, but at the same time, he is a little bit. He does cope. He's a coper. He's salty. He's salty. So it's copium / salt tier list, but I like the word copium, so it's called the copium tier list. Benoit Saint Denis, sprinkle. I'll say a sprinkle of saltiness. He's got a sprinkle of saltiness to him, man. Benoit Saint Denis has a little sprinkle of saltiness. Staph infection this, staph infection that. I mean, dude, Benoit always has something wrong with him, it seems like. This dude's always got a staph infection. Yeah, needs to take more showers or something. I don't know, man. I don't know. He needs to do something. Because, he had staph going into the Hooker fight and, of course, going into the Dustin fight. Almost finished Dustin Poirier with a staph infection and antibiotics, by the way. In round 1, let's not forget, 10-8 round. And anyways, Henry Cejudo is a cope artist. He's a cope artist, copes about everything, copes about any loss, just about it. He copes really hard about the Aljo stuff. He's really overconfident in himself. Like, kind of has an over-competitiveness about him. Just a very salty guy, and it's very annoying. The cope artists are, like, where the most annoying copers are. And that's Cejudo. Cejudo is very annoying when he copes. Even when he's right, like, even when he got eye poked, it's super annoying. He's just an artist of being able to cope and being a salt master, right? He certainly puts his shifts in at the salt mines, okay? Cheeto Vera. Cheeto Vera is also a cope artist. You know what? I'm going to put... No, I'll have him in the same tier. Because Cheeto Vera literally... I mean, what does he not cope about? What is he not salty about? This guy's always whining about something. Oh, Manly this, Manly... He whines about every single loss he has. About every performance he has that's lackluster. And is always complaining and getting heated and over emotional. This guy is just a cope artist. He just copes and whines. Dude, Kobe's another one. But Kobe's a salt shaker. Kobe's a salt shaker. It's insane levels. This guy is screaming at Kamaru. I know you can say, "Oh, it's a character." I think sometimes that character slips and he just genuinely gets angry. I think he's just so salty and so copium filled that he like puts on this character to mask it. I think the character's to mask his anger. I don't think the anger is part of the character. I think that's just him just breaking because he's just so freaking salty, and it's funny. It's funny. It's fun. It's insane how salty he is. I think McGregor is salty and he copes, but I wouldn't say he's a cope artist. I don't think he copes that hard about things. Like, he has antics and stuff, but he doesn't really, like, do too much coping. I'll put a slight layer because there is, like, he is a salty guy for sure. There's some saltiness about him. But honestly, on pure salt, like, Khabib's more salty than McGregor. Khabib just doesn't really cope because there's nothing really to cope about, but, like, he's salty. Khabib's a very salty guy. He's definitely more salty than McGregor, even though he beat him. McGregor did just get in his head. But, yeah, McGregor does have a slight layering of copium, for sure. Chris Curtis, oh my gosh, dude, Chris Curtis is so annoying. Dude, this dude is so annoying, and he's so whiny, and he's so sensitive about everything. You guys probably saw the stuff about, like, with him and Strickland. He was freaking whining about, like, Lucas Tracy and stuff. You know what? I put him in cope artist. Like, this guy's just freaking, like, jeez, like, he's just so whiny about it. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, shut up, man. Yeah, I think I'll do something like this. I'll do that. I'd say they're higher than Cejudo. I might even put Cejudo down here for now. Yeah. I think Marvin Vettori, man. Oh no, not Marvin. Not Marvin, taking everything so personally. He takes everything so personally, dude. He's so salty. I gotta have him in cope artist because it's less cope for him because this is copium / saltiness. Okay, and his saltiness levels are like off the charts. Like, it's like he's so salty. Like, dude, this dude consumes so much sodium that like he gets stressed out by the amount of salt that he mines at the salt mines, right? And it's to the point where, like, his cortisol levels are just off the charts. You know, I don't really know the direction I'm trying to go with this. But you understand what I mean. This guy takes everything personally. This guy's always yelling and getting angry at the presser. Anytime he gets out-trashed, anytime someone is, like, mildly saying something that's, like, against him, just mildly, even if they're his opponent, like, he'll just get so angry about it. He'll take it so personal. And then, like, he'll cope about it after the fact. And this guy, he's an artist. He's an artist. He's a bit of an artist with how he does it. He's a bit of a cope artist. Now, Tony Ferg, he's got a sprinkle. He's lost a lot, but he hasn't done much coping. He's coped a little bit, and, like, he thinks he's, still better than he is. But it's kind of the seat. I think the CTE has given a sprinkle, a light layer of copium. Oh, there we go. Salty, dude, you need to get your salt shakers out. You need to start shaking the salt. You need to start. Dude, when Jamal Hill, when this guy comes into the salt mines, you've got freaking Kobe, you've got Cheeto, you got Chris, you got Marvin, they all bow their heads, right? They bow their heads to this guy. He's a king of saltiness and copium, This is more copium oriented than salty, so because of that, I'll do that, because in terms of, like, copium, he does not cope as much as a Kobe Covington does. He doesn't cope as much as a Kobe Covington, but he is just incredibly salty, dude. Like, the amounts of sodium that I can feel surging through my body when I hear this guy talk is immeasurable. Okay, and now moving on. I mean, Kevin Holland, he's an artist with it. He's like this dude, like, he's crazy with it. Like, he copes so hard. Now that I think about it, I think Cheeto might be down here. But, dude, Kevin Holland, oh my gosh, he's always on this, like, saying he didn't try and stuff, because he'll just sometimes not give it his best effort in a fight, right? And then just afterwards, just use that as an excuse to say that he didn't try. It's the ultimate coping method. And then even when he does try, in the D-Rod and Mal fight, the D-Rod fight was, like, the first fight in a minute where it's like, wow, he was trying his absolute best. And that's what he looks like when he tries his absolute best. All that copium for what? For what, dude? Why do you cope like that? He's an artist with it. He's an artist. He's so salty about everything. Like, when someone was saying, like, someone asked him, like, hey, like, are you going to be able to be fighting like this, like, when you're, a champ and stuff? He's like, who says I want to be a champ? Who says I want to be a champ? Like, getting so angry because a reporter was talking about him in the title. Like, who doesn't want to be a champ, Kevin? And he was just getting so angry over it. And because, like, Kevin, he wants to make money. And then the reporter, like, reasonably was like, oh, you're going to be making the most money as a champion. You get pay-per-view points. And Kevin's saying, who says I already don't make pay-per-view points? And he probably doesn't. He probably didn't make pay-per-view points. There's no pay-per-views anymore, so no more pay-per-view points. But when there were pay-per-views around, I doubt Kevin was getting pay-per-view points. For one. And for two, like, even if he did, it's not as much as, like, a champion, obviously. But, yeah, this guy's just so weird with his saltiness. It's just pathetic. Like, with Kevin Holland, it's very pathetic. You know what? I'm gonna put him here. I'm gonna put him here. Honestly, you know what? Since it's copium and not as much salt oriented, because it's a mix of both, but it's hard because Jamal Hill doesn't cope that much. He's just a very, very salty guy. But he doesn't cope that much. So I gotta, because of that, like, I don't know. He's a salt artist, but not a cope art. I won't put him in, I won't put him in salt shakers. I won't put him in salt shakers because it's a more coping-oriented tier list. My criteria is falling apart as I speak. That's the only placement that's not going to make sense. Yuri's got CTE and autism, and it causes him to have a layer of it. He's got a layer of the cope. he does cope a little bit. Not really. It's more of a sprinkle. It's more of a sprinkle of copium. Because this guy, Yuri, I mean, all it is that, like, his copium is really just, like, he thinks he's the best. He thinks no matter, I'll get Alex in the trilogy, man. 3 times the charm after getting knocked out twice by him. Just stuff like that. But that's really all he's coped about. So it's just a sprinkle. John Jones. Look, you don't need to lose to cope. This guy is insane. This guy is insane with how he is when it comes to this stuff, dude. He's insane. He's a salt shaker. He's an ultimate cope artist, ultimate freaking gaslighter, emotional fucker. Like, this guy, John Jones, has it all. You know, he's got the saltiness going into every matchup he had saltiness. Yeah, the DC thing, that was a whole beef. But he had saltiness going into the Stipe fight. Stipe said nothing to him. And it was like, yeah, it's a fight, it's always going to be personal. What are you talking about, dude? Why are you so salty? And then there's also, it's not just that he's salty. He also copes, too. This guy, Jones, copes about a lot. He copes about, his sexuality. If you know, you know. He copes about his fighting career, trying to say, he's not ducking Tom Aspinall, but it got to the point where he embraced it and was like, I am a pitiful little duck, and made it, BFP. Yeah, he's just an insane salt shaker, dude. Insane levels of salt shaker. Because the thing is, even with, Jamal Hill, it says it's copium plus salt, Jamal Hill, isn't really... You know what? I'm going to put him here. He's funny, and he's memeable, but it's not really that bad. He just talks a lot. He's not that copy. He's not that salty. I just think that Hill talks a lot. That's my hot take. The more I think about it, the more I think he deserves to be in this mid-tier. And I think a lot of people hate on Jamal Hill for no reason. I like Jamal Hill. I think he's funny. We got Lucas Tracy. He's, one of the best MMA YouTubers out there. And he's got a layer of it. He's got a layer of this stuff, man. He copes about his picks. He copes about his goatless. And he's not, super salty, but he does cope about a lot of his picks that he gets wrong. And he copes about him not knowing certain fighters and stuff. Whether he reasonably does it, or whether it's reasonable or not reasonable, or it's funny, he does cope. And he just has a layer of copium to him. But I wouldn't say, oh, he's salty. He just copes, man. No, he's got a layer. He's got a layering of it, for sure. I don't think Bryce Mitchell's that copy. I'd say it's more so salty. I think he's got salt to him. With, immediately jumping to frickin' automatically assuming, the allegations of Ilya were true, even though his wife never made a statement about it, by the way. The way that it got confirmed is Ilya making a tweet. People assumed it beforehand just because his wife made a post that was, it was protect women that go through this stuff. So people just were like, oh, well, maybe that's why they're getting a divorce. It was an assumption. It wasn't until Ilya said anything and made the official statement that people knew what it was about. But before a statement was even made on any side, Bryce Mitchell decided to harp on, and, he's trying to fight his brother. And, he also copes about his, he copes about his losses. He didn't really cope about the Josh Emmett one. I mean, you can't really. You can't. You just got starched out cold. I mean, all you can say is, I got fluked, man. It's the most you can really cope about it. I guess you can cope more, but what was I going to say? Yeah, he was coping about the Ilya laws, too. And just coping about, featherweight in general, saying he's just, I'm just I was just small for the weight class and stuff. And he's a copy guy. He's a salty guy, for sure. So, I'm going at the bottom of that mid-tier. Now, I believe Charles Oliveira does have my boy Charles has a sprinkle of copium. Saying the champion has a name when Makhachev is the champ. and when Ilya is a champ. And just stuff like that. It's like little stuff where it's, come on. Come on, Charles. You're coping a little bit. But I wouldn't even say he's got a layer of copium. I'd say it's more so he's having fun, but there is a sprinkle of copiness to it, for sure. Anthony Smith is a salt shaker. He's a salt king. He's a king of the salt. Anthony on paper Smith. This dude Anthony Smith seriously thinks, and unironically, this guy thinks that John Jones, that he is a better fighter than John Jones. He believes that he would, ragdoll Alex Pereira. Okay? And in his fights, he copes, too. He calls himself Anthony Lionheart Smith when all he does is curl up in a ball. And just, not being finished doesn't mean you have heart. He freaking curls up in a ball and gets 2-on-1 wrist control. And, he just stays there. He stays there and is like, oh, don't like it. He doesn't like the violence that much, especially in his later career. And then he'll cope and say, oh, it's because this guy was strong. I struggle against this type of opponent. I struggle against that type of opponent and stuff. Honestly, he's probably going to be the king of this tier list. I'm not even going to lie. I can't think of a single thing that this man doesn't cope about in his life. He copes so hard about, him not being a UFC champion and stuff and thinking that he could do it late in his career, even though it's just not possible. He doesn't have the mindset of it. He's like, oh, I can't see my family. It's hard not seeing them in training camp, blah, blah, blah. Dude, if you want to be a champ, it's all fucking luck. It was to the point where Michael Bisping had to check him on it. He didn't go as hard as, Rogan did with Brendan Schaub, but it was close to that. But yeah, I think he's just incredibly... there's so many memes. I don't even need to say any more about it because there's so many memes about him now. There's so many memes about Anthony on paper Smith curling up in a ball. Anytime anyone uses Anthony Lionheart Smith, it always goes in quotations. Because he's got the least heart in the UFC and he gives up. Well, did because he got cut. Now, or retired. Same thing with how the end of his career went. Sean Strickland's a salty motherfucker. Sean Strickland's a salty motherfucker. He did not win the Drickus fight. I'm sorry he didn't. It wasn't if you watch that fight, it was close, but it was clear. And to cry robbery, it wasn't close. It wasn't the type of fight where cry. There are some fights where it's you know what? If the fighter cries robbery, I can see it. If Strickland just saying on the night of the fight that he thinks it's a robbery, that's fine. It's a close fight, and his perspective as a fighter is different than my perspective as a viewer. Okay? And I'm looking at that from what both guys are doing. Strickland's just focused on winning the fight the whole time. Okay? But I think that after watching the fight multiple times, as he said he did, he should know that he lost the fight. And, you can't just be saying, oh, I got robbed, over and over and over again. All the freaking time. And was just really coping hard about it. He's also a big old hypocrite. Says all this crazy shit. And then, live by the sword, die by the sword, and he doesn't do that. And he cries and complains about what Drickus says to him and stuff. And, just being, he's just a cope meister. He's very salty. He's a very salty guy. He's more salty than Jamal Hill. I think Jamal Hill a lot of times is being funny. You know what? Cope artist. Strickland is a cope artist. He is. He's not on Chris Curtis level. No, I don't know. No, I think he'll go here. He's kind of right here. He might switch towards the end. Oh, we only got a few guys left. Okay. DJ Dillashaw? Nah, I don't think he copes that much. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really think TJ Dillashaw be coping. He doesn't really cope, really. A lot of people think he does. I don't know, just because everyone shames him for being on steroids yet, and like always excludes him out of certain conversations. Yet they don't exclude Jones. Because of so many fighters like are on steroids, I don't really exclude steroided fighters from the GOAT conversation, because then there'd be so many people missing from the GOAT conversation. Like even from like a top 20 GOAT conversation, I mean, you're gonna be missing, like if you exclude steroid users, you're going to be missing Aldo. You're going to be missing Usman and Izzy. You're going to be missing out on freaking Jones and Silva. People like that who are in gear. Now, this guy, TJ Dillashaw. I don't really think he copes that much. He did cope a little bit about the Cruz loss and was coping in the build-up to that fight, I'd say. And he kind of has a little bit of an underlying salty tone about his career, so I think there's a light layer there. I think there's a light layer of it. But I don't think, I'd say it's still less than Aljo. Usman not only copes about his losses, but he also is very, he's a salty guy. He's kind of a salty guy. When it comes to a lot of things, gets very angered and triggered, like, pretty easily. Just kind of one of those, like, softer, sensitive, emotional type of guys, but, like, not to the point where, like can't control himself, like freaking Arman Sarukian. Also, Arman Sarukian's not on this list. I forgot to add him. But Arman Sarukian, by the way, I mean, with all of his activities, dude, this dude is a salty mofo. This guy is a salt shaker. Arman Sarukian's a salt shaker. Below Jones. His actions are not nearly... dude, the levels of cope you have to do the things that Jones has done because of his saltiness and copeness is insane levels of actions. That's insane levels of actions to cope about your sexuality, Jones. Alexander Volkanovski. He's got a little bit of CTE cope. He's like Yuri. I'll put him right above Yuri. Yeah, that's my list. Oh, hold up. Just 1 second before you people leave. We got Joe Pyfer. Forget. It won't let me add any more fighters for some reason. But Joe Pyfer should also be on this tier list. Joe Pyfer is a salt shaker. Salty master. This guy is a master of the salt. Master of the cope. Dude, and it's just one fight that he lost to Jack Hermanson. He's coping so hard about it. He gets so easily triggered by the fans. Thinking about getting triggered by the fans, that makes me think that I should put Jamal higher because he does that too. But yeah, Joe Pyfer is a salt shaker.